शुक्लाम्बरधरं विष्णुं शशिवर्णं चतुर्भुजं प्रसन्नवदनं ध्यायेत् सर्वविघ्नोपशान्तये। ॐ सिन्दूरारुणविग्रहां त्रिनयनां माणिक्यमौलिस्फुरत्तारानायकशेखरां स्मितमुखीमापीनवक्षोरुहां पाणिभ्यां मलिपूर्णरत्नचषकं रक्तोत्पलं बिभ्रतीं सौम्यां रत्नघटस्थरक्तचरणां ध्यायेत् परामम्बिकाम्। ॐ ध्यायेन्नित्यं महेशं रजतगिरिनिभं चारुचन्द्रावतंसं रत्नाकल्पोज्ज्वलाङ्गं परशुमृगवरभीतिहस्तं प्रसन्नं पद्मासीनं समन्तात् स्तुतममरगणैः व्याघ्रकृत्तिं वसानं विश्वाद्यं विश्वबीजं निखिलभयहरं पञ्चवक्त्रं त्रिनेत्रम्। ॐ नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्। गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुर्गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुः साक्षात् परं ब्रह्म तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादं शङ्करं लोकशङ्करम्। ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। ॐ सर्वोपनिषदो गावो दोग्धा गोपालनन्दनः पार्थो वत्ससुधीर्भोक्ता दुग्धं गीतामृतं महत्।
धृतराष्ट्र उवाच धर्मक्षेत्रे कुरुक्षेत्रे समवेतायुयुत्सवः मामकाः पाण्डवाश्चैव किमकुर्वत सञ्जय। श्रीभगवानुवाच क्लैप्यं मास्मकमः पार्थ नैतत्त्वय्युपपद्यते क्षुद्रं हृदय दौर्बल्यं त्यक्त्वोत्तिष्ठ परन्तप। अर्जुन उवाच मदनुग्रहाय परमं गुह्यम् अध्यात्मसंगितं यत्त्वयोक्तं वचस्तेन मोहोऽयं विगतो मम। मन्यसे यदि तच्छक्यं मया द्रष्टुम् इति प्रभो योगेश्वर ततो मे त्वं दर्शयात्मानमव्ययम्। श्री भगवान उवाच न तु मां शक्यसे द्रष्टुम् अनेनैव स्वचक्षुषा दिव्यं ददामि ते चक्षुः पश्य मे योगमैश्वरम्। संजय उवाच एवमुक्त्वा ततो राजन् महायोगेश्वरो हरिः दर्शयामास पार्थाय परमं रूपमैश्वरम्। दिवि सूर्यसहस्रस्य भवेद्युगपदुत्थिता यदि भासदृशी सा स्यात् भासस्तस्य महात्मनः। ततः स विस्मयाविष्टो हृष्टरोमा धनञ्जयः प्रणम्य शिरसा देवं कृताञ्जलिर्भाषत। अर्जुन उवाच त्वमक्षरं परमं वेदितव्यं त्वमस्य विश्वस्य परं निधानम् त्वमव्ययः शाश्वत धर्मगुप्ता सनातनस्त्वं पुरुषो मतो मे अनादिमध्यान्तम् अनन्तवीर्यम् अनन्तबाहुं शशिसूर्यनेत्रं पश्यामि त्वां दीप्तहुताशवक्त्रं स्वतेजसा विश्वमिदं तपन्तम् द्यावा पृथिव्योरिदम् अन्तरं हि व्याप्तं त्वैकेन दिशश्च सर्वा दृष्ट्वा अद्भुतं रूपमुग्रं तवेदं लोकत्रयं प्रव्यथितं महात्मन् दंष्ट्राकरालानि च ते मुखानि दृष्ट्वैव कलानलसन्निभानि दिशो न जाने न लभे च शर्म प्रसीद देवेश जगन्निवास अदृष्टपूर्वं हृषितोऽस्मि दृष्ट्वा भयेन च प्रव्यथितं मनो मे तदेव मे दर्शय देवरूपं प्रसीद देवेश जगन्निवास किरीटिनं गदिनं चक्रहस्तम् इच्छामि त्वां द्रष्टुम् अहं तथैव तेनैव रूपेण चतुर्भुजेन सहस्रबाहो भव विश्वमूर्ते श्री भगवान् उवाच मया प्रसन्नेन तवार्जुनेदं रूपं परं दर्शितम् आत्मयोगात् तेजोमयं विश्वम् अनन्तमाद्यं यन्मे त्वदन्येन न दृष्टपूर्वम् सुदुर्दशम् इदं रूपं दृष्ट्वान् असि यन्मम देवा अप्यस्य रूपस्य नित्यं दर्शनकाङ्क्षिणः भक्त्या त्वनन्यया शक्या अहम् एवं विधोऽर्जुन ज्ञातुं द्रष्टुं च तत्त्वेन प्रवेष्टुं च परन्तप मत्कर्म कृन्मत्परमो मद्भक्तः सङ्गवर्जितः निर्वैरः सर्वभूतेषु यः स मामेति पाण्डव.
Thank you, Resi. That was very nice. Very good. Acha. So, chapter 13.
14.
14.
Shlok number 14.
Slok 14. 14, 14. Very good. Acha. So right now we just concluded the characteristics of the three gunas. Sattva, Rajas, Tamas, what is their nature, how they bind. So this is the handcuff or the shackle. What is the nature of this handcuff? Threefold handcuff. And then what is the nature of Sattva? Illumination, stainless, healing, clinging to pleasure and knowledge. Binds by that. Rajas, what of attachment, source of craving, passion, binds the embodied spirit with attachment to works. Tamas, from nescience, ignorance, deludes all embodied beings, binds with the ones we remembered from the Yoga Sutra, the 9 obstacles. How does that go? Vyadhi, Sthana, Samshaya, Pramada, Alasya, Avirati, Bhranti Darshana, Alabdha Bhumikatva, and Anavasthitattvani. They're all worth remembering. Here only Pramada, Alasya, and Nidra are listed. Pramada. So, Vyadhi is a disease. If there is a bodily disease, the mind will be agitated because mind will be focused on the pain of the body. So then yoga is very difficult, right? So that's why it is very good to practice when the body is still in not giving pain. So that's why it is very wonderful to see everyone, but particularly the younger people, because this is a greater sign of wisdom. To learn at a young age is a very, very high sign of wisdom and practice. Very good. So, Sthana. Sthana is a kind of a apathy, mental apathy, or um, not having that kind of enthusiastic desire for learning about the Brahma Vidya. Kind of apathy is the right word. You know, sometimes they say about the youth who don't vote that they are apathetic. They're not caring about that kind of a feeling, not caring about this Brahma Vidya. Yes, samshaya, doubt. This is a killer, right? So many people, they're curious. What is the nature of karma? Uh, is free will important or is determinism important? I hear these questions every time, even in a dinner conversation. But there is a doubt, which is it really true that what is said in the Bhagavad Gita is the absolute truth? You know, should I take those words for the truth? Or could it be that there is not something final there, decisive, conclusive? Right? That doubt is an obstacle. So having faith, Shraddha, in the words of the Vedanta Guru, and recognizing that the Bhagavad Gita is one of the prasthana trayi of the Vedanta, so it cannot be wrong, and that our mental clarity has to be improved so that we can truly understand the truths, comprehend the truths, embrace the truth, know the truth, live the truth, enjoy the truth, right? It'll definitely come. Practice will always lead to that, right? So, samshaya. And samshaya, if it is there, then it must be cleared. Doubts must be cleared. And that's the whole point of satsang. If you don't attend satsang, then it is difficult to get the doubts cleared because there are so many sources of knowledge, so called. We don't know, it's very confusing. And only through Shraddha in the Guru and the Vedanta can the doubts be cleared. Samshaya, pramada, carelessness. So carelessness is, so common for us, right? We may, even when we're doing our ordinary duties or a prayer, if we are careless, then the mind is wandering. It's not on track, so to speak, right? That's why, if you remember, G.R.D. Iyer says, think of each akshara like a march past examination. So when you say the shloka, you should be thinking of each akshara being given its correct weight, importance, pronunciation, meaning. So then it becomes a full engagement. We call it flow in some things. It should really be, our prayer should be a flow. All the attention is engaged in it. If that's not there, then it's pramada, carelessness. Alasya is, of course, laziness. Again, this is the characteristic of tamas, right? When we get up in the morning, do we bounce out of bed, or do we drag ourselves with some reluctance, especially if it is cold outside? There's reluctance, right? We must acknowledge this. Uh, Again, no value judgment here. The body is, Bhagavan Sri Shankaracharya says, it is jada, meaning that it has no intelligence in some sense of its own. Well, there is body intelligence in a different sense, but the identification of oneself with the body is the source of ignorance. And so the body is tamasic, right? So when our waking consciousness, when the sun rises, our consciousness comes from sleeping state into the waking state. There's a transition. That transition is very crucial. If at that transition we come into the waking state in the right way, then everything goes well. You know, sattva predominates. Because you see, remember in the Puranas, see Brahma, when he starts the creation, I don't know if you know the story. It's there in Devi Mahatmyam, I think, uh, Devi Bhagavatam. But when he tries to create, he has to fight a war against Madhu and Kaitaba. And he fights for 10,000 years. And Vishnu comes to help him. It's only through Vishnu's help that he overcomes these two demons. Now, you see, every day when you wake up, you are actually fighting Madhu and Kaitaba. It's true. Every waking up from sleep is like Brahma's creation. Now, when you wake up successfully in alignment with the cosmos, so when the sun comes up, if at that time you wake up, right, with the Brahma Muhurt, that is, of course, before sunrise, 2 muhurtas before itself has started. At that time, you can destroy these demons within you, right? If those demons are not destroyed, they will overpower the day with tamas. Okay, it's not easy. I know we all lead busy lives. We don't sleep when we should, sleep too late. This is the great gift of electric light. We have Thomas Edison to thank for this, that we work way too long and we stay up way too late, even after the sun is set. But of course, if you're in these latitudes also, sunset is quite late nowadays. So naturally, the circadian rhythm is also giving you less sleep now, whether you like it or not. That's its own thing. And maybe that's why they say Bharatavarsha is Punya Bhumi, because there the day and night are very even. Even through the summer and the winter, there's not much variation in the daytime and evening time. Very, very steady across the seasons. So perfect for sadhana. If you live in the very northern latitudes or the very southern latitudes with very long days and very short nights and very short days and very long nights, it's harder, actually. It strains the body more. So that perfect temperature balance, perfect day and night balance is there in the Punya Bhumi, the spiritual heart of the world. So that helps us overcome alasya in a way. Right? But nevertheless, wherever one is, one can still practice. Right? So alasya. Avirati. Avirati is overindulgence in sexual activities. So that drains the virya or the life force. And when that happens, then the spiritual eye gets dim. It is creates a certain lack of spiritual vision. It creates a spiritual blindness. So therefore, it's not. It's an obstacle on the path to yoga. Pramad, alasya, avirati. Bhranti darshana. So Bhranti darshana is a false vision. False vision can be in different ways. It can be a false interpretation of the scripture. It can also be a false, like seeing some hallucinations induced by drugs or even naturally, and then taking them to be something else. Getting afraid of visions, seeing spirits, all these kind of things. Bhranti darshana. Right? Misinterpretation of all experience, even non-physical, non-waking state experience. Getting afraid of dreams, thinking there are spirits visiting you, something is occupying me, all these kinds of Bhranti Darshana. Alabdha Bhumikatva, practicing but unable to, feeling that I'm not attaining the stages. There are Saptadha, 7 stages of development in yoga described in Vyasa and other texts. A feeling that I'm trying and trying and nothing is happening. This is one of the obstacles also. And then finally, Anavasthitattvani. This is the hardest one, which is having attained in yoga, inability to keep the level there. So this aspirant now has reached the final stage. The aspirant has conquered all those other 8 obstacles, reached a stage, but not able to stay there. And so slipping. This is the final obstacle in yoga. So very beautiful description of 9 obstacles of which two are tamasic, definitely. There are other ones that are tamasic too, but the true tamasic ones are mentioned here. Pramada alasya nidra bihi tan nibadnati. It binds through those, O Bharata, son of Bharata. Sattvam sukhe sanjayati, etc. Sattva causes clinging to pleasure, rajas to works, while tamas, shrouding knowledge, causes clinging to error. Then the notion that there is no being which is purely constituted of only one guna. All the gunas are there in all beings and they cycle. There is a predominance. This cycle is life. The life is movement of the gunas. We talk of in Ayurveda, the day is divided into 4-hour chunks. So if sunrise is at 6 a.m., 6 to 10 is actually kapha, 10 to 2 is pitta, 2 to 6, 2 afternoon to 6 p.m. is vata. 6 to 10 again is followed by kapha. 10 to 12, 10 at night to 2 a.m. is pitta. 2 to 6 is again vata. And so the trick is to rise in the vata time of the early morning before 6 a.m., before kapha starts. After sunrise, kapha takes over. And so rising before that, one takes advantage of the cosmic energy of illumination. Right? Go through the day. 10 to 2 is the most beautiful brilliance. Your tejas is most in the midday, 4 hours. That's when also the food is consumed in the middle of that. So that the Jataragni, the stomach's fire is at its maximum. You can digest best. Then 2 to afternoon, 2 to 6 is also a vata time. And then 6 to 10 is kapha. In that time, one should go to sleep. If you eat early and sleep, then sleep will come nicely. If one stays beyond 10 p.m., based on this kind of, this 4-hour cycle will change depending on the daytime, evening time. There's compression and whatever. But taking this as the standard, the 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. will be pitta time. So the mind will be very agitated in terms of excited. If you stay beyond that, then you feel hungry at night, midnight snack. And that's downhill from there on, because now you've stimulated the body at the wrong time. You have fired up this gastric fire at the wrong time. Now your body is out of whack. And that lifestyle will cause difficulty. Because then again, 2 a.m. to 6, in that vata time, you will be trying to sleep. So the cycle gets thrown off. It is not easy to keep to it, but it's good to know at least. Right. So moving on, this is the cycling. And each one rises and subdues the other. Right? And then when the light of knowledge shines at all the openings of the senses, know that sattva is dominant. Greed, activity, commencement of works, disquiet, desire, these appear when rajas predominates. Gloom, inaction, error, delusion, you may say depression, all these come when tamas increases. So, now I think 14 we were saying, right? Yeah, 14. Will somebody read, please?
Yes, Professor. Yada sattve pravruddhe tu pralayam yati dehabhrit tadottama vidam lokan amalan pratipadyate.
Very nice. Thank you. Yada, when? Sattve pravruddhe, in the domination of sattva. Tu, pralayam. See pralayam here beautifully. Dissolution of the body and dissolution of the world. Microcosm and macrocosm. Brahmanda, Pindanda, Aikyam. So, when the Dehabrit, the one that is supported in the body, that one, what is that? The embodied self, Jiva, he who is supported in the body. When that one goes towards dissolution, then what happens? Tad uttama vidam lokan. Amalan. Amalan is unstained. Mala is dirt. Amala is no dirt, dirtless. Uttama, highest. Vidam, best knowers, highest knowers. Lokan, those worlds. Pratipadhyate, it attains to. So, passing away when the sattva dominates, the embodied self attains the unstained worlds pertaining to the best knowers. So, those who know the evolutes like Mahat or the best of the knowers or the Sankhya. So, you see, we have talked about these lokas. So, after Swargalok, you get Mahajana Tapa, and the Siddhas dwell there, right? So, when Sattva predominates, all those worlds above, Mahajana, Tapasakti, these are accessible, right? Kailasha, Vaikuntha, right? So the worlds of the Siddhas or the worlds of the three aspects of the Lord himself. So that is clear. Any questions? Okay, next one, please.
रजसि प्रलयं गत्वा कर्मसङ्गिषु जायते तथा प्रलीनस्तमसि मूढयोनिषु जायते.
Right. Thank you. Rajasi, in Rajas, locative case. In Rajas, when Pralayam Gatva, when dissolution has been resorted to, having gone to dissolution in Rajas, Karma Sangishu, the attachment to works in them, in those who have attachment to works. Birth is attained again, Jayate. So he says, translates those addicted to works, those who have attachment to works, strongly attached. Kshatriya families, right? Because warriors are involved in works with great enthusiasm. Or those engaged in Krishi or in the trading, in merchants, right? In that kind of a family with that predominant guna, the jiva is born again to complete the cycle, to purify the mind again, right? Because works are done to purify the mind, right? So this is the import. Tatha pralinaha tamasi. If that dissolution happens when tamas is predominant, mudha yonishu, in the wombs of the deluded, one is born. Dying in a state of dominant rajas, one is born among men addicted to works. Likewise, dying in a state of dominant tamas, one is born in the wombs of animals and so forth. So, Atita shlokarthasya eva sankshepaha uchyate. The gist of the ideas expressed in the foregoing verses is set forth. Please, number 16.
कर्मणः सुकृतस्याहुः सात्विकं निर्मलं फलं रजसस्तु फलं दुःखम् अज्ञानं तमसः फलम्.
Beautiful. This is such a powerful verse. Such a powerful verse. Why is it so powerful? Karmanaha sukritasya ahuhu. Sukritaha, well done. Right? Works well done. That is meritorious works. What is the satvikam nirmalam phalam? The fruit phalam of well done works, meritorious works, sukritaha karmanaha, is said ahuhu, is said to be satvikam and nirmalam, meaning satvik and stainless, without any defects. Rajasastu phalam dukkham, but the fruit of rajas is pain. This is very hard for most people to comprehend. Ajnanam tamasa phalam, and the fruit of tamasic activities is ignorance. Right? So note that it is not action itself which is the problem. It is the dominant mode in the mind at the time the action is performed. Right? So the same action, if performed with the right mode dominant in the mind, this is very important. The same action performed with the right mode dominant will yield different fruits. How can we understand that? Let us suppose that a good example comes to mind from other works also. Let us suppose we have the unfortunate situation where we heard recently this, collapse of some towers in Florida. You might have heard of that. A condo collapsed, and people are trapped in the rubble, right? Now, let's suppose there is a person trapped in the rubble, and they have to release this person, right? So, the only way, let us say, at that point of release is you have to amputate the limb. Limb is trapped under the concrete, right? Is that a good thing to do? It's a himsa. It's a painful act, but you're doing it for a good reason. Correct? It's doing to save a life, right? In that case, it's okay. The fruit of that will be stainless. But if one does it to harm somebody with the intent to hurt that person, intent to maim them or to disable them, then its fruit is, of course, not good, right? Doctor also wields a scalpel, right? A murderer wields a knife. The doctor wields the scalpel, same thing. It's a sharp object piercing the body, but he is doing it with a good intention to save the patient. But the evil doer, his intent is not good, right? So this is the meaning that action itself is not the problem. Arjuna is going to kill people in the battle. He is going to take a bow and arrow and do something pretty cruel. He's going to do it to his own kinsman of all things. His own guru. He's going to fire arrows at. I mean, look at the mental strength you need to do that. Ordinary mortal cannot do it. Ordinary mortal will quail, right? But only the one established in dharma can do something like that. And that's why the riddle of the Bhagavad Gita is so great, right? Are there times when one has to fight one's kinspeople? Yes, there can be a time. There can be a time. But you must be firmly established in dharma to do that. Only that will give the strength. Because in the end, you realize that it is not kinship that is important. It is which guna is predominant that is important. Therefore, they say, Bandhava Shiva Bhaktascha. Your bandhu, true bandhu, is the one in whom sattva is predominant. That will always be your relative if the mind is purified, right? Other relatives, they may cycle their gunas. Hard to say, right? Prahlad was born to Hiranyakashipu, correct? His sister was Holika, right? Bandhu, relative, born in the same family, Sahodari, born in the same womb. She was prepared to keep him and burn him, right? When father ordered that he should be put to death for saying Vishnu's name repeatedly, right? So what does that teach us? Kinship is important to a point only. If the kinsman embraces the wrong gunas, rajas and tamas repeatedly, or that is predominant, then that kinship itself is sacrificable in preference to the sattvic guna, right? This is very important to know. Right? So the karma's fruits. Now let us talk about. So of meritorious work of sattvic work, the virtuous maintain the fruit is sattvic and stainless, but of rajas or rajasic work, the fruit is mere pain. So in our Yoga Sutra, it says, Sarvameva dukkham vivekinaha. Right? All activity, the yogis say, mental activity, which is born of rajas, eventually is pain. Right? Difficult concept to grasp, difficult concept to keep in our mind at all times, and yet, right? And yet the universe moves, right? In its own way, through its own power. Likewise, ignorance is the fruit of tamasic work, of unrighteous work. So we may, in a more simple way, we may say that dharmic work, so we can distinguish two kinds of work, that there is dharmic work and adharmic work, right? Adharmic work is clearly tamasic. And within the dharmic work, there are what we may say kamya karma. Kamya karma is work with a desire in mind, object in mind. Nishkamya karma. So nishkamya karma, which is in accord with dharma, is sattvic. Kamya karma, that's in accord with dharma, is rajasic. Adharma is tamasic. This is the way to distinguish. What else emanates from the constituents? Kincha gunebhyah bhavati. Number 17, please.
तत्त्वात् संजायते ज्ञानं रजसो लोभ एव च प्रमादमोहौ तमसो भवतो अज्ञानमेव च.
Very beautiful, very beautiful. Sattvat sanjayate jnanam. That is why it is so prized. Of the three gunas, the rule always is purify tamas with rajas, purify rajas with sattva. Sattva, when purified, dies of itself. It is sattva that leads us to jnanam. It's sattva that is inclining you to come now and sit in satsang. It is sattva that inspires you to know the truth of everything, to study the Bhagavad Gita, to have Shraddha. All this is sattvic, right? And it is filling you with a very peaceful and blissful feeling. The calmness of the heart. You don't know that feeling? The peace in the heart. This is sattvic, right? Now, rajaso lobha evacha. Activity of rajas, on the other hand, results in greed. Natural, but unfortunate. The more we we take a pleasure in something, it will create an attachment, then repeat or increase lobha, right? Then pramada moha, both carelessness, error, and moha, delusion. Tamasaha, bhavato, ajnanamevacha, and ignorance also are born of tamas. So, this is the breakup. So what else emanates from the constituents? These are the things. And this is true at so many levels. This is true right from the sense organs to our daily activities, all the way into the deepest levels of Prakriti. So this very powerful verse can be understood at many, many, many levels. Any questions on 17? Hmm.
So, Dr. Shankar, we read previously that at any given point there are those three gunas, but which one is dominant decides everything.
Right.
So Bhagwan is not denouncing any, right? Even in this shloka.
He is not, but he is teaching that progressively we want to increase the percentage of sattva in us,
Ji.
right? So you may say that at the time of birth, there is a guna balance in everybody, right? And as one goes through life, that balance can be increased of sattva.
Ji.
Every time you come to satsang, you're increasing your sattva, right? And there are practical ways to also use the gunas in the day-to-day activities. Like using tamas to rest the body is not a bad thing. The body needs rest.
Ji.
Nobody can stay up all night and continue, right? You cannot. So good sound sleep, resting the body, resting the organs, resting the limbs, resting the mind, right, is a good thing. Then, but it should not continue for too long, out of sync with the cosmos. So when the cosmos awakes, then we must, that is the alignment, that is the Sanatana Dharma, right? We are aligning ourselves with Prakriti. When the sun wakes up, we also wake up, right? Engage in activity, which is good because it overcomes the Nidra. So now you are using Rajas to overcome Tamas. You get up in the morning, you take a few, maybe you do some pranayam, you wash your face, you go for a walk, or you begin your Sandhya Vandanam, whatever it is, right? Activity. And then if you do Sandhya Vandanam, which is at the time of the Sandhya, the junction of the twilights, then that is a very sattvic activity, right? So you have roused yourself, overcome the tamas, wash your face. Water is the form of the Lord, purest form of the Lord. Maybe you take a walk, you say a prayer. As the stars are still twinkling at the Uttama time, you do a Sandhya, right? You observe the junction of the lights. This is very purifying, right? So now the gunas have been deployed in the way they were meant to be deployed, right? There is harmony with the universe. Right? Then the rest of the day, whatever happens will go very well because sattva has predominated in the beginning. At the end of the day, after all the day's activities are done, Sandhya again, the twilight, again one deploys sattva, review the day's activities, see where the mind was taken astray, where it stayed on the path, recommit to the next day, right? In this way, day by day, the mind is getting more and more clear, more and more purified, right? Then the days turn into a fortnight, a paksha goes. There is a Krishna paksha and a Shukla paksha. Even there is a predominance of gunas. On the Purnima, the Sattva guna is waxed to its maximum. Right? That's why they say Prayana Kale. We already read, didn't we read? Northern and southern paths. Northern path is what? In the daytime, in Agni, right? And in Shukla Paksha, passing. Because that is Sattva. He said Sattva is predominating, right? At those times. So recognizing that, right? Then the fortnight goes by, then the masas, right? Then we have Uttarayana, Dakshinayana, 6 months, there are Ritus. So you become aware of the cosmic cycle of the gunas, right? So this way the mind becomes tuned like a tuning fork to the vibrations of the Lord himself. These are the Lord's vibrations. This is his song, right? At different frequencies. I gave you the frequency. Frequency is time, right? So one frequency is daily frequency. One frequency is fortnightly frequency, like this. Yeah. So these are long range frequencies. Right? And then year, then 60 cycle, you know, Shashti Samvatsara. That's another cycle, another long range frequency. After that, the human being is become very ripe. So we do Shashtiyabda Purti. This human being has seen many things in life, right? So forth. So, um, huh. Number 18, please.
ऊर्ध्वं गच्छन्ति सत्त्वस्था मध्ये तिष्ठन्ति राजसः जघन्ये गुणवृत्तिस्था अधो गच्छन्ति तामसः.
Right. This is very powerful. And this relates directly to the chakras and the lokas. Remember, there is a correspondence between the chakras and the lokas. Right. So, right now, as long as the Shakti is still trapped in Muladhar, right, the mind is operating in the physical plane, and above are from Muladhar, Swadhisthana, Manipuraka, Anahata, Vishuddhi, right, Agya, and Sahasrara. Right? These are upward. Right? The lokas going up are Bhur, Bhuva, Suva. Then comes Mahajanatapa, which we said those are the sattvic lokas, right? Up till Devalok is Rajasic. The abode of Indra is Rajasic. Okay. Above the lok in the realms of the Siddhas are sattvic. Right. So this, if you have this mental picture in your mind, it will become clear what is this verse. Urdhvam gachanti. Remember everything urdhvam. Urdhvaretuhu. The one who is able to drive the energy upward. Right. Urdhvam jigatu bheshajam. Medicinal property. Bheshaji. The one who gives us the medicine for samsara. Shiva Rudrasya Bheshaji. Remember that? From Rudra. Sri Rudram. Sri Rudra Prashnam. Shiva Rudrasya Bheshaji. Right? And Urdhvam Jigatu Bheshanam. Upward goes this medicine, which is the medicine for the release from embodiment, the cure for the disease of samsara, the Bhavarogam. Right? So, Urdhvam Gachanti Sattvastha. Those who are established in Sattva, they go upward. Madhye Tishtanti Rajasaha. They reach up to the Manipuraka chakra and they attain Svargalok and they stay in that Rajasic level. Jaganya Gunavrittastha. Now let's look at the last one. Adho Gachanti Tamasaha. Adharaya Namaha. Adhara is downward. So all that which is descending into Swadhisthana, Mooladhara, or the lower chakras, which are also there, and the 7 worlds below. Atala, Vitala, Sutala, Rasatala, Talatala, Bahatala, Patala. These worlds descend the tamasic. Right? 14 worlds. So the choice is ours. Right? How are we going to cultivate which guna? And then at the Prayana Kal, what is going to be the destiny next? Right? So, Urdhvamiti, Urdhvam Gachanti Devalokadishu Utpadyante Sattvasthaha, means to be born in the world of gods, etc. Those who are confirmed in Sattva, who live as men of Sattva, should do so. Rajasic natures are born among human beings, abiding in the ways of the lowest constituent. Those whose life is marked by sleep, indolence, etc., go down, they're born in animal wombs. Who do so? The tamasic folk. So, then there is a somewhat discussion, which again connects with the Yoga Sutra. But maybe this little piece is worth seeing. I am happy, I am unhappy. Sukhi, dukhi. Moodha aham asmi. I am deluded with reference to the constituents. Iti evam rupaha yaha sangaha sakaranam purushasya sad asad yoni janma prapti lakshanasya. Man subject to nescience by being caught in the clutches of the constituents. Iti samasena purvadhyaye yat uktam tat iha sattvam rajastama iti gunaha prakriti sambhavaha. That verse was 14.5, I believe. So, right, from the fifth onwards, in which are set forth the nature of the constituents. So, iti arabhya guna swarupam guna vrittam swavrittena cha gunanan bandhakatvam guna vritta nibadhyasya cha purushasya yagatihi. So, what happens has been set forth. The nature of the constituents, their operations, how they bind, and the destiny of the bound man. Now it is time to explain the nature of deliverance through right knowledge. So, this has been explained in detail. Mithya jnana moolam bandha karanam vistarena uktva. Aduna, now, samyak darshanat, through the right knowledge, the equal vision, mokshaha vaktavyaha, the nature of deliverance through right knowledge should be spoken of, or will be, it is time to explain. Iti ataha aha bhagavan. Therefore, the Lord says now, 19 please.
नान्यं गुणेभ्यकर्तारं यदा द्रष्टानुपश्यति गुणेभ्यश्च परं वेत्ति मद्भावं सोऽधिगच्छति.
Very beautiful. So you see, when people ask the question, is there free will or determinism? Am I doing karmas? Who is doing karmas? Should we do karmas? And all that. The answer to that is this. Na anyam gunebhya kartam. There is no doer other than the gunas. Okay. Yada, when, drashta, the seer, anupashyati, sees, the seer with the capital S, gunebhyascha param vetti, he knows my status beyond these gunas as a gunatita, mad bhavam, and he attains my status, so adhigachati. Right? So when the person sees the gunas as the agent, then that person ceases to attribute doership to others. And then forgiveness follows. Because how can you blame someone for something that they didn't do? You can only blame the agent, right? But if you only see this vibration of the gunas in everybody, then whom to blame? Everybody is blameless. It's only the gunas play with the gunas, right? When that vision becomes permanent, then that person transcends the gunas themselves and becomes one with the Lord. Madbhavam sadhigachati. He knows my status and he attains my status beyond these gunas themselves. Right? So now the true answer to karma comes. The problem is not action, the problem is the notion of doership. That I am the doer. Neither am I the doer, nor are others the doers. Gunas play with the gunas. Right? But this is a very high and difficult vision to hold in one's mind at all times. Right? It's not easy, right? If we can see like this at all times, that's very hard. Right? Because the gunas themselves delude us. Right? And so this power, that is the power. Right? When we say Maya's power, Maya Shakti, that is Shakti. Right? It's the greatest power in the world. There is no power greater than that. Right? Bhagavan himself has said, Maya Maya Durutyaya. My Maya is hard to cross. Right? So he's a very great magician. Right? Yogeshwara. So the easiest way is surrender to the Lord, because it's difficult for the human mind to keep this vision perfectly at all times. And that is where the power of Bhakti Yoga comes, right? That if the mind, even seeing once inside the flash, right, can say that, Lord, your power is too great. I must submit myself to you, and you in your infinite grace, you will deliver me, right? That is where bhaktas are very wise, because they are so smart. They surrendered completely quickly, right? But it also means that their true surrender has led to Gyan, right? And Gyanis, if their Gyan is true, then they are the most precious bhaktas of the Lord, because he says they are my very self. Chaturvidha bhajante mam, remember. Then what does he say? Arti, Artharthi, Gyanarthi. But the Gyani is the dearest to me, because he is my very self. Right? So that way all the verses can be nicely combined in this explanation, right? So a very difficult vision to keep. Somebody like Bhagavan Ramana Maharishi, a Sahaja Samadhi, Jivan Mukta, has this vision at all times. So he says, the mind, when it gets involved in the world, it departs from the cool shade of Brahman and enters into the hot, baking intensity of samsara, of the world, right? He says, why would you do that once you have felt the cool shade, right? These are the words of a very, a fully realized, full-blown Jivan Mukta, right? So we can see how he lived his life, right? In that perfection of always delighting in the bliss. Like, that's why Ramana, Ramyate, right? Always delighting in the bliss of the self. This is a very delightful and inspiring thought, correct? So, number 20, please. Oh, we are at 6:31. Let me just look ahead a little bit and see. Yes, let us read 20, and then there is a little break. So 20 sounds like a good place to stop.
गुणानेतानतीत्यन्त्रीन् देहि देह समुद्भवान् जन्म मृत्यु जरा दुःखै विमुक्तो अमृतमश्नुते.
Beautiful. Yes. Gunan, plural, gunas, etan, these. Atitya, going beyond. Treen, these three, referring to gunan. Etan, treen, gunan. These three gunans transcending. Dehi, the embodied one. Deha samudbhavan, the embodied, whence the body has sprung up. Right? The embodied self is liberated. So the three constituents whence the body has sprung up, right? So the gunas have given birth to the body itself, right? See, when we examine the body, what do we find? There is an ear, bit of flesh, right? This is the organ of hearing, right? And inside there is some eardrum, and all that stuff. This is tamas predominant. Okay. This physical ear is predominated by tamas. Okay. Now, the sense of hearing, right, that is rajas. Okay, but the actual experience that goes into the mind and registers as a sound, that is sattva predominantly. Okay, so because of the predominance of sattva, we are able to hear sound. Because what did we say? Sattva is knowledge, sattva is intelligence, right? Now suppose I take a dead body and I blare a loudspeaker into its ear, will it hear? No. What has happened? There's no sattva left inside it. Because why? The pranas have departed. Right? Now that is only tamas. The ear is there. The organ of hearing is there. But it is not receiving anything. It is a dud. Yes or no? Right? It is devoid of any trace of sattva. Because the pranas with the mind have left. Right? So that's why Bhagavan says, this deha samudbhavan, this body itself is constituted of the three gunas. Mind is also constituted of the three gunas. Prana is also constituted of the three gunas, right? In its different forms, the diversified prana, the fivefold prana. So now, who is the one then who is sitting in the city of nine gates? This Purusha, Purishayati, this seer, Dehi, also called here, the embodied self. So when this embodied self, remember that why was Purusha bound? He was bound because of misidentification with Prakriti on account of attachment to the gunas. Once this Purusha transcends the gunas, then what happens? Janma, birth, Mrityu, death, Jara, old age, Dukkhaihi, pains, all right? Vimuktaha, freed from, Amritam, the immortal, immortality, Ashnute, eats, partakes of, attains, right? So this is the Shad Vikara, right? The sixfold transformations to which all living things are subject. Of those, Bhagavan has enumerated a few. That is the three. Janma, Mrityu, Jara. He's kind of quickly concised it, said it concisely. Dukkhair vimuktaha, freed of all those. Gunaniti, gunan etan yathoktan atitya jivan neva atikramya, transcending, moving beyond. Maya upadhi bhutan, these adjuncts of Maya, upadhis are limitations. The jiva which is unlimited, supreme, feels limited because of the upadhis. The seeds whence the body has sprung. Trin dehi deha samudbhavan. Dehotpatti bija bhutan. The body has sprung up from those seed elements. And janma mrityu jara dukkhaihi. Janma cha mrityuscha jara cha dukkhani cha. Janma mrityu jara dukkhani taihi. Jivan eva. Released from these, vimuktaha, son, vidvan, the enlightened sage, amritam, immortality, ashnate, attains. Evam mad bhavam adhigachati ityartha. He reaches my status. Same point echoed before. So we will stop there because Arjuna is going to ask another question after that. Any questions on what we covered so far?
Yes, Dr. Shankar, I have a twofold question.
Sure.
So you just explained that how the gunas play with the gunas, and there is no doer except the gunas.
Right.
But in order to survive in the Kali Yuga, the buddhi has to take some decisions, right?
Right.
I mean, we have to identify if something good or bad is happening and then take appropriate actions.
Right.
So in that case, is it a folly to perceive some activity as being done, or I mean, that brings to my second part of the question. Is it then the gunas informing the buddhi? And
Yeah.
depending on whether there is sattva predominance or rajas, the buddhi informs the body to take actions.
Absolutely. That's right.
Because I'm thinking of the example that you gave of the sadhu and the snake.
Right.
So the snake knows, I mean, he has been made aware of the sattva guna, but then the sadhu tells him that you have to hiss sometimes to
Right.
protect yourself.
Right.
So in that case, is it, I mean, what I'm trying to ask is, he knows that the boys are bad, they're throwing stones at him.
That's right.
So he may or may, I mean, I don't know the snake, but he may or may not be aware that it's the interplay of gunas.
Mhm.
But still his buddhi has to take an action, knowing that it's just the interplay of gunas, even in the boys, like
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, you see, why does Sri Krishna tell Arjuna to take up the bow and arrow and go fight Duryodhana? Right? Because Duryodhana has acted out of tamas. He has not listened to reason. His buddhi is overwhelmed by tamas. Now, can you reason with beyond a point? He has tried everything. They tried, exhausted all the diplomacy, all the statecraft, asked nicely, give us 5 kingdoms. Okay, then give us 5 villages at least. Okay, then at least give us, one village, one house. He says, I will not give you even a pin drop of land on this entire earth, right? Then all the options have been exhausted. What is the predominant guna in Duryodhana? Complete tamas. And not even recognizing Sri Krishna's wisdom, right? Not seeing the Lord present right there, correct? And he has somehow managed to also ensnare all the Dronacharya, Bhishma, through false sense of kinship,
right.
right? That's why they say we'll fight on your side because we are your kin. It's actually the greatest exposure of the mistake of kinship. The Pandavas are wise because they put their lot with Sri Krishna. They put their side with Sattva. All those who fought on the side of the Pandavas put their lot with Sattva. They put their lot with Krishna. They did not choose kinship over wisdom. So, undoubtedly, in the external world, if we encounter other people, you can see the oscillation of the gunas in them. Sometimes they will be sattvic, sometimes they will be tamasic, sometimes they will be rajasic. And there will also be a predominance of guna in every life, right? There are people who are predominantly rajasic. There are people who are they will have occasional flashes of sattva, but they will not display it for long periods, right? Now, if one engages with them, you will always encounter pain, right? Same thing with the tamasic. If the ones in whom rajas and tamas is predominant, engagement with them will always result in delusion and pain. It's just a fact. And so one has to be very skillful in dealing with them, right? If you entertain the tamasic too much, then they will drag you into depths of delusion. If you entertain the rajasic too much, they will drag you into pain, right? So sometimes the tamasic have to be resorted to with rajas, right? Imagine you take a child, okay? There are 3 types of children. Sattvic child. Sattvic child, you tell the child, listen, don't do this, you're hurting somebody, this is not good. What does the Sattvic child do? It will listen. Word is enough. Once it is reprimanded, in fact, Sattvic child won't even do wrong things because its own buddhi will not lead it to do wrong things. If occasionally, once or twice it missteps, a word is enough. You can appeal to its higher wisdom. Now, large proportion of children are not Sattvic. Okay, they will do bad things. Then you have to guide them. You have to say, okay, you're getting very energetic. Let us go for a run. Now you're burning the rajas by activity. Child comes back exhausted, give it a bath, it will cool down, you give it food, it will go to sleep. You're taken care of that guna. then there is a very lazy child. It will not get out of bed. It will always do contrary things. And now this is wrong to say in this country, but only danda will work for some children. You can't, there are all kinds of proscriptions against that these days. But the truth of the matter is, tamas can only be overcome with rajas. It has to be given the push. Otherwise, it won't go away. But this age-old wisdom has become unacceptable. And so we are suffering from it. Because if tamas is not dealt with rajas, it will overwhelm the world. And you will be cast, the whole world will be cast into ignorance. So the more and more we entertain tamas and we don't control it, and we don't activate it through rajas, and we don't purify it through sattva, the world will descend into greater and greater ignorance. There is no doubt about this. At the end of the day, the human being will not be walking on his feet, he will be walking on his head. Society is now walking on its head. What does that mean? The intellectuals, the wise people are all at the bottom. Okay? The ones who are filled with greed, hatred, anger, loud voices are on top. The purveyors of ignorance are on top. And unless there is societal change, right, it will not happen overnight. It will require effort, right? And so through the activation, through satsangs, through the spreading of the good word of the Lord among those who want to listen, society gets activated. Because when one person changes, they change the people around them. Then the community changes a little bit. Community changes, the state changes in that way, right? There is a ripple effect. And so that is why all the wonderful places where we say where there is light, the Jyotirlingas, and these kind of places are highly revered because from there light emanates and destroys tamas in the world. Okay? Any other comments or questions? So I think roundabout way you say I answered, right? That you have to resist.
Yes, yes, Dr. Shankar.
Both within oneself, internally and externally. Right. Externally also, indeed. And internally. That is Bhagavan's advice. And everything done with the idea that this is in the name of the Lord. Right. If one can honestly feel that and say that, then the fruits will be of the highest order. Right. Okay, shall I say Shanti Mantram and we'll conclude? Have a lovely evening, everyone. Namaste Shiva. He was in some very beautiful park. And Namaste Rakesh. See you, Racy. Namaste, Uncle.
Namaste,
Namaste,
namaste, namaste, Dr. Sahab.
Ah.
Namaste.
Oh, Mahesh is also there.
Namaste, namaste, Dr.
Ah.
I was along, very, very powerful email. I can't, I was driving, just finishing my driving. Thank you.
Namaste. Very good. Om Tacham Yoravruணிमहे Gatum Yajñāya Gatum Yajñapataye Daivihi Swastirastu Nah Swastirmanushebyah Urdhvam Jigatu Bheshajam Shanno Astu Dvipadehe Sham Chatushpade Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.